Hey guys and gals, Joe here. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm here with a replay of a match against a Grixis control / mid-range deck. Looking at the opening hands, mine looks really great. I've got 2 blue sources, AEther Vial, 2 Cursecatchers, Silvergill, Kira, Great Glass Spinner. Pretty solid 7. On the opponent's side of things, it looks like they have 5 lands, an Inquisition, and a Thought Scour. Doesn't seem like a keep to me. I won the die roll. Let's see. I'm going to tell him that I keep. Let's see if the opponent kept. They chose to keep. Strange keep. You guys let me know what you think about that keep in the comments. So I'm going to open with Oboro into AEther Vial. And the opponent draws a Cryptic Command. It's a pretty good rip when you're sitting on 5 lands. You want to keep hitting spells. So on my side, a land would be okay, cards would be okay, spells I mean. Cursecatcher's decent. Gonna lead with Silvergill Adept, revealing a Cursecatcher, because that's the only Merfolk I have to reveal. Draw into an Island Walk Lord, so pretty good. Opponent lets me resolve AEther Vial, and turn 2, I've got 2 Merfolk on the table, ready to deal some damage. Interesting that the opponent didn't choose to cast Inquisition of Kozilek on turn 1. I guess there are different schools of thought about how to best use Inquisition or Thoughtseize. Maybe you don't care too much about the opponent's turn 1 play and you want to wait until turn 2 after they've made another draw. But I don't know. Every time the opponent has Inquisition or Thoughtseize in their hand, I see it on turn 1. So this guy definitely swimming against the current. So now he casts the Inquisition and he gets to see my Island Walk Lord. So for all I know, he might be onto something. He had the mana to pay for Cursecatcher, so I have to let this resolve. And he does go ahead and take my Island Walk Lord. So pretty savvy. My turn, I'll put AEther Vial up to 2, and I draw that 3rd land. Feel pretty good about that. I'm going to start off by attacking for 3. The opponent's going to crack their Polluted Delta, getting a basic island, and looks like Thought Scouring. Maybe he wants to see if I'll sack the Cursecatcher before damage. Interesting play. I'm not going to, of course. Just going to resolve that Thought Scour. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to resolve Kira. The opponent's tapped out. And these Cursecatchers are actually doing a fair amount of work right now against this imminent damnation. See, the opponent knows about the Kira. I can hide that. And he knows about the Cursecatcher, so he knows about everything at this point. Draws a Lightning Bolt, passes the turn after playing his 3rd land. No 4th land for me to resolve this Master of Waves. Maybe that's better, though, with this Damnation coming. Or the, I guess, Cryptic Command coming. Having a land here, though, I'd probably try to play Master of Waves. So the opponent not going to be able to touch me here with Kira on the board. I'll go ahead and play out my Cursecatchers. And with these guys, I'm going to swing for 5. Opponent's going to go from 15 down to 10. Perhaps they'll go to their draw step here. Looks like we're getting close to this replay. Might have scooped it at some point soon. Draws another land. I don't know what he was looking for. Plays the 4th land. Plays the 5th land. Plays the 6th land. Plays the 7th land. Alright, so he's complaining that he's been drawing too much land. So that's the end of game 1. The Cursecatchers saved the day against what could have been a pretty dirty damnation. On to game 2. So I was on the play that game. The opponent looks like they've drawn a pretty excellent hand for game 2. So he keeps, doesn't tell me, just plays a land. I tell him I'll keep. 2 islands and a bunch of 2 drops is usually a keep, solid keep. So I've got this Dispel that I just drew into in the event that my opponent tries to resolve some instants while I have blue mana available. Jace Vern's Prodigy. Now, sometimes this guy can do a lot of work against Merfolk if he actually gets to flip and start plussing, giving my creatures, or hitting my creatures power, making it hard to get meaningful attacks while they keep using removal through Lightning Bolt and Snapcaster Lightning Bolt, Snapcaster Kolaghan's Command. But sometimes he's kind of a joke because we can bounce him with Harbinger of the Tides. But a smart opponent will wait until my end step to tap him. They won't do it on their main phase. So he won't be susceptible to Harbinger during my own main phase. Alright, so for my turn, I'm going to go ahead and play out one of my Island Walk Lords, not wanting to just waste Harbinger's effect at this point. But tapping out, the opponent gets to use Kolaghan's Command. So playing against black-red decks on turn 3, you pretty much always want to try to look out for this spell, because it's a pretty easy 2-for-1. He's going to hit my Lord and make me discard a spell. However, being short on lands, this counterspell is, and not having AEther Vial, this counterspell is a little bit clunky, so discarding it in this spot is not the worst. So I untapped with the Lord by mistake, and I'm just going to go ahead and play another Lord. Not too much I can do this game on these 2 lands. On my end step, the opponent is going to dig with Jace, and looks like he drew another Snapcaster, so the opponent's much better cards this game. Hits its 4th land, right on time. Taps 2 mana, is going to Snap Bolt my Master, and things are looking more and more grim. I draw that 3rd land and play a Merrow Reejerey, but we see they have another Kolaghan's Command and another Snapcaster Mage in hand. Okay, Jace taps and the opponent finds an Engineered Explosives. Thinking about what to discard, the Explosives, yeah, makes sense because with only a single 3-drop on the table, it's not going to do too much work. Swinging with a Snapcaster, I'll happily take 2. The opponent drew into a Lightning Bolt, so this Snapcaster is just extra awesome now. And we see the Bolt on the Merrow Reejerey. Relic is decent, but it's not going to do much on its own. If this Jace gets activated, he's going to flip. I'm going to try to resolve this Relic, but in response to the Relic, he's going to activate. I was a little bit off my, how to say this, sort of off balance in these games because I started off playing like I usually do in game 1, trying to wait for the opponent to acknowledge my spells and say okay. He got frustrated with that in game 1 and actually said, I don't counter anything, just go ahead, don't worry about it. So, so I started playing spells not on the stack but straight to the table, and then he says, no, wait, because of course he does have instant speed effects. So, off balance, he caught me and activated Jace in response. So we have a little conversation over there. He loots, draws a Desolate Lighthouse, and discards it. Jace is going to flip. A little bit unfortunate. Activate Relic and pass the turn. Still not wanting to waste these Harbingers. Probably going to cycle the Relic. Okay, so the opponent runs out of Tasigur and a tapped Blood Crypt. On my end step, I'll cycle the Relic and trying to draw lands, hit a Dismember. That'll at least get Tasigur off the table. I go down to 12. The opponent's still happily at 19. My land situation in this game has been difficult from the beginning, and we see the opponent continues to have access to more than adequate removal. Okay, swing with Snapcaster, cast Kolaghan's Command, gets back his Snapcaster Mage. Value Town. Plays a tapped Watery Grave. There's my 4th land. I'll go ahead and run out this Master of Waves. So the opponent minuses my Elemental and is going to play another Tasigur. It seems he drew into that. So on my turn, I have to think about what I want to do with these Harbingers. If I want to keep mana up to bounce Tasigur on the opponent's turn, or run out this Master of Waves. I think in the end, I left the mana up. If the opponent doesn't attack with the Tasigur, I can bring Harbinger in and then get more tokens from the second Master of Waves. Opponent's going to go with Serum Visions after apparently drawing into another Snapcaster Mage. I put a lightning bolt from library on the bottom of his library. I guess he doesn't think that's good enough. And he puts Dreadbore also on the bottom. 2 red spells that don't do very much against Master of Waves. So he doesn't attack with Tasigur. I guess he's afraid for that guy. I'm going to activate Mutavault and block here with my Master of Waves. Buffing the Mutavault to a 3/3. Opponent's graveyard, he has his Kolaghan's Command, and unfortunately can flash it back. No, that doesn't really matter because I have Pro Red, so silly attack with the Snapcaster Mage. I get to eat him with my Mutavault. And during the opponent's end step, I'll bring in that Harbinger of the Tides that I mentioned. So I hit a 6th land. What's the play this turn? Is it going to be running out Harbinger and then running out Master of Waves? I'm feeling pretty behind in this game, and an army of elementals seems like potentially my only reasonable way to sort of claw my way back into it. So he brings 6 new 3/2s. I'm going to think about attacks a little bit, but with that Tasigur on the board, makes things a little bit tricky. Okay, so this guy's thinking of... Oh, man. All right, so this was a big mistake on my part. So I was still off balance. The opponent telling me that he doesn't counter anything. I'm just running my creatures onto the board. He does have Snapcasters, and he can use Kolaghan's to make me discard something. So I started off with Harbinger of the Tides. And then in response to Harbinger of the Tides, with that on the stack, now that he knows that I have this Master of Waves, he can do 2 damage to something or whatever mode he wants and make me discard my Master of Waves. So it's super dirty. I have nobody to blame but myself. Let this be a lesson to all you guys. If your opponent tries to rush your playstyle, always, you know, just politely decline, say, you know, as long as you're not slow playing, you should go through your normal motions. Don't let them disrupt your sort of natural rhythm, okay? So what I would have typically done is I would have played the Harbinger of the Tides, waited for it to resolve. You can see in this case, I played Harbinger and then played Master of Waves, which is something that I pretty much would never do, except against this weird opponent who, you know, told me, don't worry about resolving your spells, I play no counter spells. And so I ran the Harbinger, ran the Master of Waves. Normally, this guy would resolve. Of course, the opponent's not going to counter it. He's not going to do anything weird in response to Harbinger of the Tides. He's not going to Snapcaster Kolaghan's in response to Harbinger of the Tides. It just doesn't make sense. But now he knows that I have this Master of Waves. He's making me back up to when Harbinger is on the stack. And I'm not going to argue. You know, I rushed. So here comes Snapcaster Mage. He's going to do 2 damage to Harbinger of the Tides. And he's going to get back his Snapcaster Mage, it looks like. Alright, making me discard my Master of Waves. Pretty dirty. So in retrospect, I think I would have had a decent chance of winning this game with that second Master of Waves. But through that blunder, you know, I'm totally on the back foot for the rest of the match. Opponent draws another land. He's going to keep plussing Jace. I draw into an Island Walk Lord, which is decent, but I feel like I might be a little bit too far behind. The opponent can start activating Tasigur and get lots of value out of his graveyard. Let's go ahead and activate this Mutavault. And decide to be a little bit conservative in case he kills the Island Walk Lord. I've still got the Master of Waves not attacking, just so he doesn't get eaten by Tasigur. The opponent activates Tasigur, puts Damnation and Jace into the graveyard, which is terrible because we can see in his hand, we know that he has, from the previously cast Kolaghan's Command, he has a Snapcaster Mage, which can pick up the Damnation, or we know that Jace is on the board, and of course he can -3 and Damnation my board whenever he wants. So I decided to give him back a Serum Visions. Sorry guys, I'm going to drag this game out a little bit more. Didn't quite realize how deep the hole was in, that I was in. You know, Jace can ultimate if he wants at any moment. Just fast forwarding, the opponent's thinking about his plays. Looks like he's going to play Terminate out of his graveyard, getting rid of my Island Walk Lord. cast Serum Visions from his hand, and put two more Serum Visions onto the bottom of his library. I draw a land. You know, it's going to happen sometimes. The opponent gets to get another card out of his graveyard. I think I'm going to give him the Serum Visions again. Draws another Snapcaster Mage. Fast forward, fast forward, fast forward. After that, that blunder with the Master of Waves where the opponent made me discard him, just totally falling deeper and deeper into the hole. So the opponent's got too much stuff. I just scoop it up. Frustrating game, but you know, as I said, nobody to blame but myself. Let's see how this third game went. 2 lands, bunch of Island Walk Lords and Harbingers. Looks fantastic. On the opponent's side of things, also looks extremely powerful. He's got 2 Snapcasters, a Pyroclasm, a Cryptic Command if he draws a couple more lands, and this Engineered Explosives can do a lot of work against my 2-drops. Alright, another Island Walk Lord. I'll play one of those guys out now. Cursecatcher is doing a lot of work here, putting this Pyroclasm off by an entire turn. Opponent takes 2 from the Cursecatcher, cracks his Scalding Tarn, bringing him down to 17. Plays his second land, and with this Pyroclasm being threatened to get countered by Cursecatcher, he runs out Engineered Explosives instead. So at this point in the game, with Engineered Explosives on the table, I have to think carefully about, you know, which spells I deploy and which spells I don't. There's something to be said for if I have a handful of 2-drops, not sitting back on them too long and wasting tempo by just not playing anything. Fortunately, I drew into a Cursecatcher here, who is both going to delay my opponent's spells and make this Engineered Explosive worse because it's sitting with 2 counters and will only be able to get rid of my Island Walk Lord. It's going to take 2 mana to activate this. He has no more mana available here, so I think a little bit this turn about whether I should push damage with another Island Walk Lord. Ultimately, though, I think Cursecatcher is pretty obviously the best play here. I'll swing for 4. The opponent's already down to 13, and I'll follow up with a second Cursecatcher. The opponent draws into a Dreadbore. With the 2 Cursecatchers up, these 2-drop instants and sorceries are not looking that amazing. Actually, they're both sorceries, Pyroclasm and Dreadbore. Okay, so he's Dreadboring my Cursecatcher, not even going to make me sack it. So, draw into a 3rd land. That's not terrible. And at this point, it's time to push damage. This is, I think, kind of a very instructional game. With all my experience with this deck, I'm just at a point now where I sort of realize when to lean, when to be conservative. When I say lean, I mean lean on the opponent, just push damage, and be a little bit reckless. In this case, I see the opponent has missed a land drop. I drew into a Mutavault who's going to play around things like Pyroclasm and Damnation, so even if he wipes my board, I'm still going to be able to keep poking him with Mutavault. So the play here is definitely run out one of these Island Walk Lords and swing for 6, threatening lethal on the very next turn if he doesn't pop this Engineered Explosives. So the opponent does draw a land and plays it. Passing the turn, Pyroclasm, playing 2 Lords out makes everybody 3/3s, also makes Pyroclasm relatively ineffective. So for my turn, I draw Dismember. Not super useful, but I'm going to go ahead and just push damage, as I said was the plan. I'm going to activate Mutavault and swing. The opponent doesn't have very many options except to kill my 2-drops. So they go away, the opponent takes 3 damage, and I've got mana up for Dismember if he actually plays a creature out. So he can play Tasigur here. He's got 3 mana and 3 spells, but he goes with Jace here instead. I guess he needs to start digging for lands. Seems like a reasonable play, although with only a Cursecatcher and a Mutavault on the board, seems like Tasigur might have been the better move. He's got a Watery Grave, so if I had another Island Walk Lord, that's very threatening because I can push right through Tasigur. However, with this Dismember up and no other targets available, I go ahead and use that, happily going from 20 down to 16 to take him off of that ability to dig for cards. So at this point, I have a 2-turn clock, regardless of what I do. I can swing for 3 now, take the opponent off of fetch lands. It seems like a reasonable path, but with this Cursecatcher up to slow down any of his spells, I decide that I'm going to go ahead and play an Island Walk Lord now, swing with Cursecatcher for 2, hopefully, unless he's representing Lightning Bolt. And then with the opponent at 2, Mutavault still representing a 2-turn clock, and just putting another creature on the board makes it that much trickier for my opponent. Also, this guy's complaining about not having lands, and you know, I didn't have lands last game for a while, and you know, that's what happens sometimes. He had an amazing opening hand, but he only had 2 lands, and you know, didn't get to fire off this Pyroclasm because of the power of Cursecatcher. Had nothing to do with not having enough lands. So I swing for 2, and the opponent is going to take his last draw step. I think he hits a land. Can't complain, he hasn't missed too many land drops. So, thinking about what his outs are here, I do have Mutavault to attack. If he, let's see, if he plays out Pyroclasm and just a Snapcaster to trade with my Mutavault, that seems like a reasonable option, although I could sacrifice a Cursecatcher to make him pay for Pyroclasm, which I would because Cursecatcher is going to die anyway, and then he doesn't have enough mana left, I think. However, he could get Tasigur into play, because if he plays the Polluted Delta, he'd have access to 4 mana. He could Pyroclasm, let's see, if I sack the Cursecatcher to counter it, he could tap a land to pay for it, he has another land, and at that point he'd have 5 cards in the graveyard after Polluted Delta, well, 6 with the Pyroclasm. Plenty to get Tasigur out. And I'd have an empty board except for a Mutavault. But it looks like the opponent might have scooped it up at this point. And he did. So I wish I could have left the board state up for you guys. As soon as the guy leaves, it just closes the window here. But, you know, you can rewind a little bit and look at the board state. It didn't look like he needed to scoop. I was certainly in the driver's seat. But, you know, he didn't know, I think, what was in my hand. I think I only had Harbingers. Yeah, I think it was an early concession. But maybe he was just frustrated after going so quickly to a lower life total. Thanks for watching, guys. Please, as always, if you have any comments, leave them, and I'll respond quickly. And yeah, that's about it. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.